our last panelists for the day.
Yes. I'd like to invite to the stage our final panelists, Anne Krefting and Wayne Kynes. I apologize, there will be one more panel, so I'm mistaken. Is Wayne not in the room? We can start with Anne. Okay. Is there a name tag? Okay, there we go. It comes wherever you are. All right. Anne Krefting. And we're going to hear about Knowledge Factory, a community-based approach model for innovation in urban development. Anne graduated from Art and Anglistics, University Duisburg-Essen. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay. She holds a doctorate in aesthetic and communication and is a certified systemic coach, European Training Academy in Vienna. She's a researcher and educator in the field of material culture and design theory. And Anne worked in museum design and communication in the University of Cologne and was former dean of the Faculty of Applied Science and Art at the German University in Cairo. All right, Anne, the floor is yours, please. How do I go to technical help? Technical help? Can we have technical help here, please? All right, just a second. I don't know, where's the magic button? Is the magic button?
Okay. I really have to thank you for the invitation, Dr. Alia at Human Foundation. And I find it amazing to share this event with you and also to share...
Hello?
What happened?
There was somebody talking.
Okay, yeah. So I'm excited and happy to share this event with you and also to share my thoughts. Actually, the title Knowledge Factory fits very well to the frame we are sitting in because Alex Library is a knowledge factory already. And this conference itself is a knowledge factory as well. And what I would like to add today is some thoughts on how we can use cultural processes and cultural mechanisms as mechanisms of research as well as urban and social development. So, I'm going to have 4 assumptions. First of all, is innovation is a female feature. The second one is that urban planning is about interaction. The third one is that creative economy is a driver for urban development. And the last one is that knowledge factory is a process model. So, what you can find in research, not done by women, but by men recently, is focusing on what are female values. So it starts a shift, which is very interesting, where not only women are interested in rights, but where society and where men and we all together get interested in sort of which are the values and mechanisms that make a change, which is necessary to adapt to the changes which are on globally. So Gazzema and D'Antonio in the book The Athena Doctrine wrote, I just have to have 1 minute. So, values that underpin a new generation of innovation are based on connection and creativity. Many of the values that society was increasingly favoring, such as long-term thinking, passion, empathy, listening, communication, flexibility, agility, collaboration, transparency, openness, and humility, are typically considered feminine. Funny enough, they continue, the most promising innovations of our time depend on exactly these feminine traits and values. From this point of view, an embrace of feminine qualities can be thought of as a competitive advantage, not unlike a breakthrough technology or a market insight. So, additionally, the concept of culture is often thought of as a soft benefit. But, and this also is from Gazzema and Antonio, where innovation, problem solving, and creativity are the marks of growing business, a strong culture is the foundation beneath them. So this means innovation, creativity, and culture not only meant as the way you think, act, and interact, but also the roots of our culture and the cultural background have a strong impact on social development, on economic development, as well as personal growth. The point, too, is about urban planning. What does this mean? If architecture... No, it's a quote. It's by an architect, Francis Carré. Architecture is about people, is what he's saying. If we consider architecture as buildings, we are somehow outdated. And this means, what he's saying is that architecture is about people. It means creating the ideal space, the ideal surroundings, is a way to allow people's ideas to flourish. So if we think architecture, urban planning, is about buildings, this is only one part of the equation. We have to take into consideration and come to completely different solutions if we think that it is about people. Another interesting architect is Issa Arida. He's a Lebanese, English, British architect, and he has been working on new concepts for architects and urban planning, which he calls urbanism, and he calls himself an urbitect. So what he says is that birds' nests, like shelter, prehistoric caves, which deal with performing, temples, pyramids, which deal with memory as archiving systems, and places like the Sistine Chapel in Rome, which tell stories, are actually outdated. What actually architecture is memory in built form. Further, he says that every human is an architect, and that the paradigm has shifted, that architecture has changed, and actually architects are obsolete. What we are, as I mentioned, is sort of that we are urbitects. This means we are transdisciplinary expert for the new urban age. As he considers the quantum paradigm as very useful and problem and solution-oriented for urban planning, he takes it like this. He says that any building is particle-like. It has a physical shape that we can measure and pinpoint geographically. We can even describe its heights, materials, etc. All architects do that, all urban designers work with that aspect. But most of all, most buildings also have a wave-life aspect that are more qualitative than quantitative. They have a function, a house, the parliament building, a school, a church, and this means they have a subjective meaning. So if we talk about architecture is about people, this means that people interact. This means architecture is about interaction. Further, he says, events also interact together to form new, higher-level particle wave events. Clusters of buildings thus form a neighborhood. It is particle-like, but it has also its own wave-like layers of meaning. It is my hood, the red light district, Chinatown, etc. And neighborhoods, furthermore, also interact together to create a city. Particle-like, but it is associated with many wave-like qualities, like the capital, where the jobs are, most romantic city on earth, and so on. So actually, if we look at urban planning, we are not only facing structural problems, but we are focusing we are facing a lot of interactional structures, because events interact, neighborhoods interact, and this means we have a huge complexity of interaction, which has a completely different perspective than thinking of it as sort of solid buildings which deliver structures and people fade into them. So what does all that mean for urban development in rich ancient cultural heritage, like we find in Egypt? And I'm currently working in Upper Egypt, in Luxor and Aswan, with service design development, with urban planning, with structural development, in order to improve not only the economic situation, but to improve the museum communication. If you consider Upper Egypt to be the biggest open air museum in the world, there's a lot of opportunities for jobs and for services around this which are not yet met. So what does all this mean? We have a culture-rich environment. In Aswan, for instance, we have the natural environment, which is amazing, and we have a crossroad between the African and the Egyptian culture, reaching enormously back into the past. Oh, I think I'm pressing the wrong buttons. So, and the question then would be, how can we access and make use of ancient knowledge which is stored in architecture and environment? Coming back to that, memory is architecture. Architecture is memory in built form. And memory in built form is rich potential for user experiences. So what is user experiences? This is what we call tourism, right? But not only that, also for locals, it's rich user experiences. So this potential can be triggered and can be influenced. And there's knowledge about this in the OECD Creative Tourism Report from 2014, that creative economy is a contribution to this potential and a driver for urban development. Why? If people come nowadays, they want not only to see the sites, but they want to have activities around them. They want to experience them. There's a huge industry of creative tourism, of people who want to come and live with people. They maybe want to learn something and so on. Parallel, and this is another contribution, a male contribution, to something which would be considered a more feminine value, and this is Irvin Lashlow and his colleague Dennis, who wrote a book in 2012, The New Science and Spirituality Reader, and they found out that actually they consider that the 21st century is the meeting point where the wisdom of ancient traditions can find a synthesis with modern science. And we know this, there's enormously interesting connections between hieroglyphs and quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and this only as a hint. So if in our historical past, our systems of knowledge were imbued with our spiritual gnosis, the delicate harmony has now gone out of balance, because what we have been able to do with our scientific tools has outstripped the reflective processes of our spiritual understanding. And there's a tendency in societies all around the world to mend this and to make this match again, and to make this work together again. So, if you think of Egypt, where else could be a better place to practice this, sort of the link between historical knowledge, between scientific knowledge and spiritual knowledge? And if we talk about creative industry and creative economy, where are we? So it's about heritage, it's about crafts, it's about traditional festivals, it's about cultural sites, it's about arts, visual, musical and performing, it's about creative business services like design, interior, software, and it's about media, publishing, print, and so on. This means culture industry is culture economy and is closely related to driving and developing not only products in tourism but also to urban development, because all these places need all these topics need places, facilities, services, and so on. So, in this sense, creative economy is an invitation for leading experts of scientific and humanistic cultures to engage in insightful and inspiring conversation. It can be a meeting of minds, like this conference is. It can be a bridge between science and spirituality. It can be conversations, seminars, symposia, and so on, that lead to a broader dialogue, substituting understanding for prejudice, making a meaningful contribution, and so on. And we heard a lot in the talks today about what kind of teaching and what kind of contributions for future knowledge this could be. So creative tourism, as part of this field, has been defined in 2000 already by Richards and Raymond as a tourism which offers visitors the opportunity to develop creative potential through active participation and learning experiences which are characteristic for the holiday destination where they are taken. So if you think of this of Upper Egypt as an economic factor, as a culture factor, the question would be, how can we develop this, and how can we supply this, and how can we also make this a cultural activity which is at the same time a product in the market? And this is what Knowledge Factory is about. So creative tourism thus is a place, and this is a definition of somebody who comes